of the Planning and Zoning Commission for October 16th, 2024. But before Colleen calls the roll, we have a new member that will be joining the PZC this evening. His name is Vladimir Kovacevic, and he will be sworn in now by Mayor Poynton, and he'll probably correct me on the pronunciation, I hope, so that we all have it correct going forward. Mayor, please.
Well, we hope we get it correct. Good evening, Board. Thanks for having me up here tonight. We have some housekeeping changes to handle before your actual PZC meeting. These changes occurred because of the appointment of former PZC member Jake Marks to the interim position of village trustee. Jake replaced, as you know, Dan Bobrowski, who is moving out of the village. The first change is the moving of current alternate commissioner Scott Morrison to a full member. Scott, just raise your hand so people can see you. There's Scott. This move requires a second change in the form of an additional person to the new alternate PZC commissioner position. The alternate commissioner fills in for any commissioner who's unable to attend a PZC meeting. As is our custom, we always attempt to tap and match as best we can the background experience, education qualifications, skills, talents, and available time of potential volunteers to positions on our advisory boards and commissions. Saying that, I'd like to introduce to you Vladimir Kovacevic. Vlad, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor.
Vlad was unanimously approved by the village board as a new PZC commissioner at the September 16th village board meeting. Vlad has been a resident of Lake Zurich for 7 years. He is a licensed professional civil and structural engineer and has had this certification since 2012. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science at the Illinois Institute of Technology in 2006 and a Master of Science at the University of California in 2009. He has extensive education and experience in planning and design of community projects, as well as experience in creating, reading, and interpreting various types of code. So, all we need to do is swear him in. So, Vlad, let's go up in front of the board here. Okay, Vlad, raise your right hand and repeat after me or read it after me, whatever you want to do. I, Vladimir Kovacevic.
I, Vladimir Kovacevic.
Oh, see, that's
Just like
right
you
off
Say it
the bat,
again.
that was wrong, right?
Just like you said it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Having been duly appointed to the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner
Having been duly appointed to the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner
in the village of Lake Zurich,
in the village of Lake Zurich,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Planning and Zoning Commissioner to the best of my ability.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Planning and Zoning Commissioner to the best of my ability.
Perfect. Thank you. You're now a commissioner. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You can sit on the end of the dais here. You want to get your book? Okay. Vlad's going to join you at the dais.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Are you going to explain to him that he can't have my job yet? Is that part of the swearing in?
No, you could explain that to him. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mayor.
everybody. Try
Okay.
not to screw this up, Vlad.
Yeah.
All right, so Colleen, now we'll go back on track. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Castillo,
Present.
Commissioner Giannini,
Present.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Present.
Commissioner Kovacevic,
Present.
Commissioner Morrison,
Present.
Commissioner Muir,
Present.
Commissioner Schultz,
Present.
Chairman Stratman.
I'm here. So now that we have a full quorum this evening, plus an alternate, we are fully ready to hear the item on agenda this evening. But before we do that, the first time is going to be the consideration of the August 21st, 24 PCC meeting minutes, since there wasn't one in September. So everyone has their copies. Are there any Questions or alterations to the minutes as presented? Okay, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the August 21st, 2024 PCC minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thanks, Hildy.
Second.
Thanks, Joe. Oh,
Scott.
Scott, thanks. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Giannini,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Kovacevic,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir,
Abstain.
Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. So the minutes are approved as submitted to us. Colleen, thank you. The next item on our agenda is published is the public meeting, but there is no public meeting this evening, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item number 4. So for that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing for the following application. It's application PCC 2024-14 for a planned unit development, PUD, amendment for Meadowwood East.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Mike. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Giannini,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Kovacevic,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir,
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. So the next thing we'll do is we're going to swear in anyone wishing to testify on this agenda item this evening. So those wishing to speak or comment at the public hearing will now be sworn in. Please raise your right hand while I read a statement to swear you in. Do you swear that testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Good, thank you. When you come to the podium this evening, please sign in on the sheet at the podium. At the beginning of your statement, please state your name, spelling it out if necessary, and state your address for the record. All comments will be addressed to the PCC chair. Any members of the public wishing to comment will be invited one by one to the podium to provide their comment. The chairperson may limit repetitious or inappropriate comments and impose reasonable time limits in accordance with any rules of the PCC. The applicant will be given the opportunity to present their application. After the applicant's presentation, the PCC members will be able to ask questions one by one of the applicants, and discussion can occur. After the PCC questions have been addressed, public testimony will be received, and the PCC commissioner comments or additional questions can ensue. After all persons are given the opportunity to speak, the hearing will be closed or continued, and the PCC will move into deliberation. The applicant may be given the opportunity to respond to questions posed by either the members of the PCC or village staff during deliberation. However, no more formal testimony will be taken after the hearing is closed unless the chair decides otherwise. Once all deliberation has ended, the PCC will vote on a recommendation to the village board on the matter. So, the agenda item 4A is application PCC 2024-14 for an amendment to the planned unit development for the Meadowwood East subdivision. It's an application for an amendment to the PUD to rezone the property within the R5 single-family residential district and to re-subdivide the property from 9 to 15 single-family lots. Staff, can you now confirm that proper notice was provided of this item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And I'd also like to make one procedural comment. Being the fact that we actually have a full quorum tonight, which is excellent, Commissioner Kovacevic will not be asked to vote today because that allows then the total complement to be an odd number, 7 commissioners. So I've also instructed Colleen, so don't be surprised if your name is not called during the final vote of the decision. But up until now, you were asked to vote on preliminary housekeeping matters. So I just want to make that
point of
statement.
information. Thank you, Sarosh.
Thank you.
Okay, and then present
Oh, yes.
the
And-
petitioner, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. And tonight, to present their petition to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we do have Mr. Kirk Russman and Mr. Mike Naumowitz. So either one of you can come to the podium, make a brief presentation and introduce yourselves as well before you start.
Okay.
Your presentation is already loaded on the village laptop, so when you are ready to talk about the actual project, it will show up on the screen. They control that in the back room.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Commission. Looking forward to talking to you tonight about this project. We, look forward to helping the community pretty much be finished here. We look at this as this property's been here for a long time and seems it is a finishing of the existing residential area, so.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt for a second? We do still need you to formally introduce yourself
Okay.
and address everything onto the record through the microphone so that they have that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry. Okay, my name's Kirk Rustman. I'm the consultant to the owner, Mike Namowitz, for the development. And I'm live in Arlington Heights at 3401 Peyton Place. And anything else we need to put in there? Or?
Nope, that's all we need.
That's good?
Thank you,
All right,
Kurt.
we're good, so.
Yep. Now,
Okay.
please proceed.
Okay. Well, we went through a meeting with the village board to get their ideas on this, and we have incorporated those into our development plan here. And I actually met with the neighbors after that meeting to make sure that we want to be sensitive to the neighbors' responses, and obviously this has been a vacant piece of property for a long time for them, and this will be a change. So I met with them and went over specifically the items that they had concern of the day, and then, that's why we're here tonight. So look forward to getting your comments. We're just asking for an amendment to the zoning. The original zoning was larger lots than we see that would be available in the market, would be difficult to build much larger homes. This is more cohesive with the existing residential development that we're definitely a part of. We, some of the benefits of our property being developed is right now the Manchester dead ends at the edge of our property here. And this will allow us to have a drive-through, so any delivery trucks, garbage trucks, snow plows, we have a strip where we have dedicated for snow plowing to be able to push the snow. Right now, there's really nowhere to push it. It gets to the end of Manchester there and it dead ends. So delivery trucks have to do 3-point turns, and it's difficult. Garbage trucks, snow plows, it's just a little bit more difficult. So I think this will be definitely a benefit to the existing community. So with that,
Did you want to go through your presentation at this point?
Sure.
It will come onto the screen.
sure.
There you go.
Okay, oops.
Back.
There you go. Oops.
I would say just talk about the picture rather than trying to point at it.
Oh, the pointer?
There is a pointer, but yeah,
Okay.
you have to point to the computer, actually. It doesn't seem to be working.
So do you want to point? You're going to hold that down? And then it
Oh,
will-
Oh, okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thing for IT people, so that's nice. Thank you. So this area right here is the connection to the existing subdivision, which is currently a dead-end area. We're gonna extend Manchester all the way through to a full-service cul-de-sac here. And then we have another new street that goes through here Liverpool, and that ends in a cul-de-sac again, allowing full access to any vehicles, delivery trucks, snow plows, et cetera. So our architecture, we're staying with a more modern architecture. This existing subdivision is 30 years old, so we're using more modern building materials, hardy board siding, stone, thin bricks, asphalt shingles. We're at this time just rezoning the property, and we just are asking for a different, to go to R5 to allow a few more lots, because there's a lot of infrastructure that has to go into here to obviously build the streets and build the water and sewer connections. There's quite a bit of drainage that has to be done on the site. We're very sensitive to the neighbors because we know that when they built the townhomes, we heard from the neighbors that there was some flooding issues and some overflow issues. We're addressing that in our design here. We have behind this area right in here is a detention area that is required by Lake County. When this subdivision was approved roughly 20 years ago, there was a whole different set of rules as far as detention, stormwater management, much more stringent today. So we have a much larger stormwater capacity on this particular plan than the one that was looked at 20 years ago. We're very sensitive to the wetland areas. Obviously, we have to, we've had a wetland specialist already been out at the jobs, out at the site. We've reviewed all of that. Everything seems to be in order there. So we have to work with Lake County to get their final approval for the wetland portion. We are showing on this plan here a wood fence that will offer some privacy screening from the existing homes of the existing subdivision to our these new homes. We certainly are open to, making the neighbors happy, whatever they want. If they don't like a fence, they don't want the fence, they'd rather have a landscape, barrier of some kind, we're certainly open to receiving those comments from the neighbors. We realize that this is a big change for them, and we would like to be good neighbors. So the water main, the water main comes through here currently. We're tapping out of that, looping it through the cul-de-sacs here. Stormwater is all flowing from everything we build here, is flowing into our detention areas here, and then eventually into the wetlands. So there'll be no real impact in the existing subdivision for that. The sewer is adequately sized. It's right here currently, with the understanding that it was going to be extended into this new subdivision area. So all our utilities, our electric is there. The gas company is currently reviewing how they're going to bring gas in there, but there's gas around. They're not quite sure. The engineering department's taking a look at that right now. So we should have a great addition to the community here, and look forward to being involved. Now, the lots are going to be marketed as lots to custom home builders. We have, as part of our development team, a very experienced custom home builder, and he will obviously, as people would express interest, if they choose to use our builder, we certainly will recommend them, but they can use their own builder, whatever. We're just, at this point, just re-subdividing it, doing all the infrastructure, and then selling the lots. So every home will be individually permitted as the individual purchasers purchase each lot. That's about it. So I look forward to the questions and working with you on this project.
Well, one question I have, Kurt, is on your presentation you had up there, so that architectural rendering was just a suggestion of where the lots were going to be,
Correct.
not in terms of the elements themselves of what the home's gonna look like. I do know that our code has the anti-monotony provision in it, so that would come into effect if you're having individual builders come on board to do this. What's your anticipation of the, assuming a recommendation moving forward, what's your anticipation of this being developed, going the route you're doing with individual custom homes?
Well, we'll be marketing it, you know, for the lots themselves, and then taking in either customers that want to build it, you know, the ultimate end user homeowners that want to come in and buy a lot, and then we'll either build it for them or they can use their own builder to build their homes. We're, you know, obviously, the reason we put the presentation up there was that I wanted to give you a sample of what the finished product would look like. So that's what we think is going to be representative of what custom home builders that come in here would have similar looking homes. And so we look forward to, you know, this is a subdivision. This is actually Killdeer Crossing, which is right here next to Lake Zurich. I was actually surprised because my daughter lives in Cedar Creek right there, and I thought this was a great thing, and then I found out it was in Killdeer. So, but you know, that's what a lot of people are building. Our subdivision will look something similar to this, so that's what I envision.
All right, so Kurt, again, with there being individual builders, you mentioned the type of material that would be utilized. Would that be a requirement of the individual builders that would want to build on those lots, that they have to follow the hardy board and the stone and the other items that you mentioned to us?
Yeah, that Mike Namowitz wants to have this as, you know, his name's on this subdivision, so, you know, he wants to have a good reputation. Looks forward to having a, you know, he's definitely a man of character and wants to, you know, continue his good name. So he wants to make sure everything that's being built here is okay. So, yeah, he's not gonna sell the lot to, you know, somebody that's gonna come in here and build you know, whatever, a less than desirable home, so. Yeah.
Kurt, if I may, I think the question that's being asked is this.
Yes.
If a party buys lot A,
Yeah.
and as it goes up, another party comes in and buys lot B, and they say, I like that lot A, I want the exact same house built on lot B. That goes to what our chairman is asking. Two houses exactly the same cannot be there together. Let me finish. So therefore, I believe the question is, how is that going to be controlled? It has nothing to do with the builders and how good they are and the materials. It has to do, how does that get prevented, given the fact that you are selling lots, which means, theoretically, anybody can build whatever they want on each individual lot, and yet, I have not heard, based on the two questions that were asked, how does that get prevented so that you don't have all these exact homes next to each other?
Yeah, that's something that we, as we get interest in either buying the lots or us building the homes, we will make that as part of our requirement. You know, internally, we have 15 homes. They're all going to be different, or, you know, substantially different, whatever the code or the village's requirements would be. Obviously, we're going to follow that. But yeah, we don't want, you know, 3 different models, and, 15 of the same looking house, absolutely. That's-
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may, tonight we are considering what we call the preliminary plan or the development concept plan. If a recommendation is made that goes to the village board that gets approved, the developer will have to come back through the process for a final plan. Within the final plan, there will be the requirement for a development agreement. That development agreement will contain all of the terms and conditions that the developer will be required to follow, specifically respecting the monotony requirements of the code. In fact, we will also put in terms and conditions that call out what materials will not be allowed, but give the developers some level of flexibility with all of the accepted materials that we allow for within the village. We will also look at making sure that the appearance codes are met as well, so that you don't have houses that look radically different from each other being built, but in general harmony as they show on their aerial rendering. So all of those terms and conditions, including any others that we hear tonight, will be incorporated into that and brought back to you when the time comes for the final plan approval.
Good. Thank you, Sarosh.
So, just for point of clarification, then this is a secondary type of courtesy review because you're not bringing forward final plat.
No, we're not doing final plat.
So
tonight.
we're
doing
just
preliminary
listening to
plat.
potential,
Yes.
which is kind of like a second courtesy review.
Actually, more than that, you are actually considering today whether it is appropriate for this property to be re-subdivided from 9 lots to 15 lots, which then would trigger a rezoning from R4
Got
to
it.
R5. So you will
So
be
that's,
making
that's
those
all
recommendations.
that's all that's being considered
Yes, and
today.
any other conditions that you want added to this.
To that
ordinance.
15 or not,
Yes,
got
exactly.
it. Got it, thank you.
We have given you a large number of the conditions over here, but as I'm hearing more conditions come up, we will continue adding them in there.
Okay.
And we will give you a final version at the final plat, or maybe even prior to closing of the meeting tonight.
So it will come, this proposal will come back to us
Yes, in the final plan.
again.
Mhm.
And conceptually, the village could end up dealing with 15 individual builders,
Conceptually, yes, that is correct.
which, I mean, that would create a lot of additional work. Is that all?
We are already providing the framework through the zoning code, such as setbacks, height, maximum landscape surface area, that the builders will have to build within that framework. And so that in itself provides for the basic foundation on which a house can be built. Then we go further with building materials, we go with architectural designs and styles, and then kind of keep building upon those on an individual case-by-case basis. So the first one in obviously will have the most amount of flexibility because there will be nothing to compare to. And as more and more builders come in, or as maybe one builder comes in with 3 lots or 5 lots, we look at them on a case-by-case basis, making sure that no 2 identical models are built next to each other. We get that control once more and more of the subdivision gets built out.
And how, is there a minimum size of home that you're looking to build? And I guess minimum cost, just so we have some sense?
Again, being a custom home, it's kind of up to the person, but our target, if you will, is about a 2,400 square feet, 2,400 to 3,000 square foot home. Depending, there may be some ranches in there, I would envision mostly 2 stories. And the price point's about $600,000 is our target price point. So that's where we're at with that.
And there will be a HOA?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
because I have the stormwater and the additional, I call it a snowplow lot, but the additional strip of property next to the sidewalk area there that separates Hawthorne Woods from our subdivision.
Right, right. And the
But-
only,
Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
the only access road is Manchester, and Manchester comes out where? Onto Rand Road?
Miller.
Oh, it
Miller
comes
Road.
out to Miller.
It goes
All the way
straight
north.
south.
Okay, I was completely turned around.
Okay.
I'm directionally challenged, I apologize. Okay, all right.
So just for clarification, that 600,000, that's if your company builds those homes. But if somebody comes in and says, I want a ranch, and whether that is 24 or 1,900 or whatever, because each home seems to be having pretty much about a half an acre. So someone can technically build a home for 400,000, somebody else can build another one for 700, whatever it's going to be. So that price point now gets widened, right? So that, and again, based on what you're saying, you have no control over that because you're basically in it to sell the lots first. Then, if they choose your company to build a home, then you'll enter into that 600,000 potential to build that home based on the specs. But it could be that you get 5 homes and all the others get 10, correct? Correct. So in that case, given the fact that they have to come and present materials and things of that, theoretically, each one of those builders could come before us to show us what they're using as materials.
Not necessarily at this time, because what we are going to be recommending through the development agreement is a framework for all of the types of materials that can and cannot be used. Like, for instance, vinyl siding will be called out as a material not allowed to be used. But there are so many other materials such as wood, hardy plank siding, cement board siding made by Certainteed, brick, stone, artificial brick. So rather than trying to say that houses shall only be built out of these materials, we typically take the position of saying the houses shall not be built with certain types of materials such as vinyl siding, metal, a full standing seam metal wall or something like that.
And that's the side that you're going to take
Yes.
as the administration to make sure that that gets adhered to, correct?
Right, absolutely.
Got it, thank you.
And then woven into that will also be the anti-monotony
Correct,
clauses.
correct, yeah, I got that part, thank you so much.
All right, Sarosh, then just for clarification for all the commissioners here.
Yes.
The review tonight is for the change from the 9 to 15 and the
Yes.
change from the R to 4 to 5.
Right.
When would this come back to the commission again for the final review? At what, explain again that step, it comes back to us at that point.
Yes, so following tonight's hearing, and if a positive recommendation is made to the village board, we will work first with the applicant to incorporate any of the comments that are received tonight, plus any of the comments that were received by staff. We have already transmitted those comments over to the applicant. Those include comments from zoning and planning staff, from the village engineer, from the fire department, and from the utilities staff. All of those will be incorporated into it. An ordinance then recommending the rezoning and the re-subdivision will be transmitted to the village board. If the village board approves that, then we will start working with the applicant on final engineering. Final engineering goes into a much greater detail on the development, such as the road gradients, the road cross-sections, the utility layouts, the utility sizes. But together with that, we also concurrently will be putting together the development agreement. The development agreement will call out the need for the HOA. It'll outline all of the impact fees. It will talk about all the building materials, any off-site improvements. There was a comment made at the village board to have Manchester Road repaved in its entirety due to the fact that there will be a lot of construction traffic going on, and that condition will be incorporated into the final development agreement. There is also a recommendation by our village engineer that the existing wetland be looked at for its impact on properties to the south, because this property will be releasing all of its stormwater at a controlled rate, no less, into the wetland, which will then be absorbed and flowing south. But we will obviously have to make sure that all of the rainfall numbers, all of the requirements for stormwater management are met to current modern-day standards. And we are aware that these standards were increased 2 years ago, where rainfall numbers were increased to have larger rain events considered at a more frequent period of time. And so the developer will be required to follow all of these modern standards, which we believe will then protect the adjacent properties to a greater extent had this property not come in for any of these changes. So this plan unit development amendment gives the village the flexibility to put together a development agreement that contains all of the requirements that will satisfy not just the village, but make sure that surrounding properties are protected from any negative impacts.
Okay. And that protection of negative impact is to the benefit whether this development takes place or not, because right now we have vacant property
Yes.
that could produce those problems.
Yes.
So, the development itself doesn't alter that. It, to
Correct.
some extent does, but it doesn't necessarily do it.
Mhm.
Much of what you just said was gonna be part of the discussion I was gonna bring up, which is the yellow items that we see in our font.
Mhm.
The yellow font that we see in the staff report. And as I was listening to you, I was looking, and you were checking them off one by one. So the items that were not green, that we were looking at, Kurt, in terms of the staff report, are the ones that Sarosh just mentioned. And he also mentioned that you've been made aware of all these concerns where although it's been met, there are concerns with it. It has been fully satisfied. So he said he's made you aware of what those items are, the repaving of the road, the wetland consideration. So on our staff reports, pages 10 and 11, you've had opportunity to review that, and so you agree that those items are items that you're understanding.
Yep.
All right,
Addressing.
thank you.
Can I also make one more statement too? When we review, first of all, the property currently is zoned within the R4 district and platted for 9 lots, which meant that if the developer wished, they could have come in simply for building permits to construct individual houses on those 9 lots. We took the time to examine the original PUD as well as all of the declarations that are in place for the townhomes to see if there was any bearing from those declarations and the PUD on this property, and there were none. It appeared that the original owner, Ms. Missick, had put together the agreement between herself as original property owner and as remaining property owner of this single-family component, and Pulte, who was the developer of the townhomes, to ensure that all of Pulte's responsibilities lay with the townhome development and the wetland maintenance, and removed herself from any responsibility of the wetland. However, because the PUD is being amended, we have intervened and said that now we will have the wetland evaluated to make sure that any release that they have into this would be controlled. The other thing too is the original PUD did not provide for any architectural restrictions, which meant that they could come in for a permit, and as long as they met the exterior appearance codes and the anti-monotony codes that are in place today, we would be able to issue them a permit administratively without any further zoning relief. So I just wanted to point that out as well. But the fact that they are here requesting changes gives the village the ability to ensure that things are done in a way that is satisfactory to the village and creates as minimal an impact to surrounding properties.
All right, thank you, Sarosh. Sean, do you have comments? I haven't heard from you this evening.
Srosh answered all of them, so nothing at this point, no.
All right, Mr. Muir? Nope. Eldie?
No, I'm good.
Joe?
Just in the wetland comment, does this HOA that represents the residential subdivision, do they become part of the covenant that covers the wetland? Or is it just talking about the release rate from the residential subdivision to that existing wetland?
The latter. It just
Latter.
controls all of the stormwater management facility maintenance on the subject property that they're looking at, and the release rate that goes into the wetland at a rate that is currently what exists, which is we require that water be detained on the premises, which is the subdivision, and released at a rate that the property is currently being released without any of these improvements. That is typically our stance now, knowing that any new impervious that's created on the property does then create a higher release rate. And so we require detention facilities to contain all of that at today's base flood elevations, the BFEs, or the water line from a 100-year event, which we find is taking place more often based on the heavier rainfalls that we are receiving. And so all of these controls we find are to the advantage of not just the subdivision, but to the adjacent wetland as well.
Would the existing PUD that was on the property, would that because there's no building out there, would that still be, available to this developer? Or would that have had to come back forward? It's still standing. They could still develop under the existing PUD?
Yes, they
Okay.
can. They can simply turn around and say, well, we're just gonna go back and develop it under the rights that we currently possess as successors to Miss Missick.
Okay. I thought there was like, some construction had to be started for the PUD to stand for that length.
Yes, and that construction happened in the townhouse portion of the development.
Understand,
Yes.
okay.
It was all considered one PUD, which is why
Yep.
we are amending the PUD tonight to allow for the rezoning and the re-subdivision. Otherwise, they would continue under the auspices and requirements of the original PUD without having to come to this board at all.
Okay.
But they have chosen to ask for relief in terms of an increased number of lots and a rezoning. That's why
Okay.
we are all here.
And then one more clarification item is just, so this is an amendment to the
PUD,
PUD?
the original PUD from 2004.
Okay. So this won't come back for final?
This will come back for final.
This will
yes.
come back to us.
We are doing a preliminary plan of this component.
So a PUD amendment comes back for final? It's not just like permit documents, it's a PUD amendment?
A PUD amendment, yes,
Okay.
which will include the final plan. So a PUD is broken up into two components, a preliminary plan, or what our ordinance codes call a development concept plan. You may have heard that term before. The development concept plan essentially looks at a very basic level, a preliminary plat, a preliminary engineering exhibit, preliminary landscaping, and then preliminary architecture at a very high level to ensure that what a developer is proposing can generally be built under the terms and conditions of that particular PUD. A PUD is what we generally try to describe as a customized ordinance, very specific to a site with very specific conditions that are pertinent to the context in which that development is taking place, rather than simply relying on the underlying zoning, which are somewhat broader based, but for the entire community with that zoning classification, but the underlying zoning does not offer the flexibility. You have to build according to that if you are going with the underlying zoning. So what a PUD does is then allow developers flexibility, and in return, the village can require certain enhancements, certain compensating amenities, and any other conditions that a developer has to meet. And so in terms of what we require through a PUD are impact fees. We require certain off-premise improvements, such as repaving of Manchester Road, enhancing of the stormwater management facilities to make sure that everything is done without any negative impact onto adjacent properties. And so that is where the village gets the flexibility in exchange for what the developer is asking for, All right?
You.
Sorry, didn't mean to ramble on, but.
All good clarification,
Okay.
thank you. Scott? I'm good. Vlad, even though you're a non-voting member tonight, you still do get to make.
You get to ask questions and be part of the discussion.
No questions right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Are we ready for public comments? Kurt, do you have anything else, or can we?
No, that's it.
Okay. Then, at this time, we will open it up to people that wish to comment on this agenda item.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we did have a sign-up sheet, so if there are anyone on the sign-up sheet, you can call those out first.
All right, great, thank you. All right, thank you, Suresh. All right. So the first name on the sign-in list is Al Stillcroft.
Hello, Commission. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Al Socroft. My wife Mary is here with me. I was previously at the courtesy review, and also thank you to Kirk for coming out and explaining what you wanted to do. My home is at 964 Manchester Road. It is the last home on the left, no pun intended, for some old movies, but it's the northernmost home, one of two that abuts to the proposed new development. My wife and I are 35-year residents of Lake Zurich. We bought our home new from Cambridge Homes back in '88, and we moved in here in 1989. When I was at the courtesy review, I raised a couple of issues, and I'm not sure that they have fully been addressed by Kirk. And no offense, Kirk, you know, our position is that we don't want to change from R4 to R5. We understand that with R4, in fact, our daughter went to high school with Ms. Mizik's son, Lake Zurich High School, many years ago. The two issues that I raised were drainage and safety. In terms of drainage, when Meadowwood West, the townhouses were built, shortly thereafter, there was a major rainfall, and Holly Circle, the Miller's Grove subdivision, had a major flood. So very, very concerned. I know that there's been discussion about having water flow off into a certain water detention or retention area. But if you haven't seen the area, there is a very steep, a very sudden change in elevation of 5 to 6 feet. That land is higher than ours. So not only would water flow to the west and north, but I don't think water flowing to the south has been addressed. The road would have a very steep angle, and in fact, when it rains right now, we get a lot of water runoff down the middle of Manchester Road, and we don't have a cul-de-sac, we have a dead end where delivery trucks, seemingly without issue, can make their three-point turns. We've been used to it for 35 years. So the current configuration really is not an issue, but there is a runoff issue that exists right now. So very concerned about what the drainage would be down the middle of the street and into our front lawns. The developer said that he would be willing to put a 5-foot wood fence to the north of our property line for privacy. He stated when we met with him that it would be possible that some of the new homes would have walkout basements. A 5-foot fence might block our privacy for the walkout basement only. What about this? What about the first floor? What about the second floor? If you look at the layout of the new lots, there would be 2 or 3 homes that would have direct visibility into our existing living room and dining room area, which we find to be unacceptable. My suggestion, if in the event that it does go through as R5, would be maybe a minimum 10-foot berm, and this would maybe protect us from water drainage directly to the south, if it can be directed to the west and to the north. And then also 10 feet would give us greater privacy compared to the 5 feet that has been proposed by the developer. Another issue that would be a huge concern for us is this is not like Pulte Homes coming in, putting in the streets, developing the lots, building their homes according to village specifications. This could take years for individual lots to sell. This is not a 1 or 2 year development. 15 homes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the lot sizes are not half acre, but you're talking about quarter acre lots, and our homes are approximately 1,900 to 2,200 or 2,300 square feet now. You're talking about larger homes on smaller lots than existing. But definitely very concerned about this being a very long-term project if the individual lots don't sell that quickly. Another issue that I have is I know that there have been several other recent home developments in Lake Zurich. Has anyone looked at or reviewed the impact on the schools? We have friends that work for the Lake Zurich School District, and our daughter is almost 40 years old, but we've been told that now that the schools are at capacity, after all of the new additions, is another school in the offing, because the taxes generated by this little subdivision certainly would not come close to offsetting the cost of building new schools. The last thing, I know that I believe there's been a tree survey that's about 20 years old, but there are pines, there's oaks, there are some, there's a lot of buckthorn that we certainly don't mind if that goes, but there's a lot of good trees. If trees come down, is there a plan to replace the trees with good quality trees in that area? So those are some of my thoughts, and we would appreciate if it stayed at R4. Thank you.
Thank you, Al, for your comments. Appreciate it. Next up would be, yes,
Can I jump in here?
yeah.
So, Sarosh, in our packet,
Yes.
on page 5, it says, the home density of the proposed development is 1.87 units per acre. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, this is.
So therefore, if it's 1.87 units per acre, how does that equate to a quarter acre, as the person who just spoke indicated?
The lots are approximately 10,000 square feet or more each, and an acre is about 43,560. So that's how we come up with the quarter acre. However, what we were looking at is the gross area of the lot, which also includes the stormwater areas and the non-buildable areas and the vacant lot to the east, separating the subdivision from Hawthorne Woods. All of that is taken into consideration when we look at gross density, and that is what is based on. So we
Thank
don't
you.
deduct the streets, we don't deduct the stormwater detention facility to try and come up with a net density. We look at a gross density.
And I have a question for the person who just spoke, please, if I could have you back.
Of course.
You mentioned quite a few comments, but one of the things that I didn't hear, I heard you say this at the beginning, but I didn't hear you address it. You said you had a safety concern. What does that mean? Because I didn't hear you clarify the safety. I heard privacy, but I didn't hear anything about safety. What do you mean by safety?
So safety, there are, we're one of the original owners, homeowners in the area, but as people of our generation have moved out, there are a lot of young families that have moved in. Every day there are families with strollers and little kids running in the street, playing. So what you're doing is adding 15 homes, 30 cars, construction traffic, and there's just going to be it's going to be a lot busier street than what it was.
Thank you. Sarosh, does this development not have sidewalks?
It does have sidewalks on both sides of the street.
And if I'm not mistaken, based on what I saw on the rendition, they are basically cul-de-sacs that have dead ends.
Yes,
So basically, you don't have a lot of through traffic that goes through there.
no true traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Al. Okay, Antonio? Okay. Next person up, please. Mike Hornacek?
Yeah, I'm Mike Hornacek. I live at 975 Manchester Court. A longtime resident of Lake Zurich, basically the same time frame that Al mentioned with he and his wife. We moved in at about the same time. Raised 3 children there, and it's been a great subdivision to live in. I'm going to be referencing occasionally this plat, the preliminary plat here. My lot is not on the lot line that's involved here, but we're number 38, so we're about 50 feet off of the line of the development. I spent some time with the staff reports here, and I'd like to kind of just run through some of these things, and where I have some questions, possibly the questions can be answered even this evening. Page 6 of the staff report notes that each of the 15 buildable lots are at least 10,000 square feet, which generally aligns with a quarter acre configuration. This is largely consistent with the existing subdivision. Because this current subdivision, Manchester Road follows the curve of Flint Creek. It kind of curves around a little bit, so we have some irregular lots, which is kind of nice. It creates some bigger and more open space. On pages 13 through 14, the bulk regulations, the proposed statement for lot width relief on the Liverpool Court and the Manchester Road cul-de-sacs seems to deal with the fact that these cul-de-sacs have wedge-shaped lots, and the village has a requirement of a 75-foot wide lot. Because they're wedge-shaped in the front, they widen out in the back, they need a variance for that. That doesn't seem to present too much of a problem, just in terms of kind of the normal configuration of cul-de-sac lots. And it's accommodation only for those lots. However, there's a section that also notes that the minimum lot width is 75 feet. And on this preliminary plat, specific to the lots on Liverpool Court that are not on the cul-de-sac, my question is, are these 75 feet wide? There is up in the upper right-hand corner of the plot, there's a illustration of the easement and side requirements and such, and the scale there is 1 inch equals 50 feet. I realize this scale probably does not apply to the main map here, but they're illustrating 50-foot wide lot. So I'd just like to make sure that we confirm that these lots that are not part of the cul-de-sac on Liverpool Court are actually 75 feet and do conform with the village requirement.
Give me 1 sec while I pull them up right here on my computer.
This plot has a lot of really little numbers on it that 10 years ago I could have read, but those days are gone.
I'm in the same boat, so don't worry. But I have the benefit of Zoom on my computer.
I can move on here if you want to.
Yes, if you don't mind. And we can even talk offline on that if you'd like
Sure.
the actual dimensions.
Al had touched on the extending the Manchester Road into the new development. There is I call it 6 to 8 feet if I stand in front of this berm. I'm not quite 6 feet tall. It's over my head. It's a very substantial elevation. This elevation starts roughly in that area, maybe a little bit to the east, and it extends to the west for about a couple hundred feet. The proposed lots 12, 13, and especially 14 and 15 will have significant elevations in their backyards over the existing subdivision lots of 32, 39, and 40. 32 is Al's lot, by the way, on the plat. The elevation difference is largely mitigated at existing lot 40, so this thing kind of runs downhill from there. So I guess the question of how are we going to mitigate the entrance into this new subdivision with this elevation, and also how this elevation is going to be mitigated when houses and driveways and sidewalks and streets are put in. There is no planned buffer, although the folks making the presentation here mentioned that they could consider some various buffers and things like this. The staff report, page 17, states the property line along the south as a single-family component of the development will be screened from adjacent properties to the south with a 6-foot-high solid privacy fence. That doesn't really address the issue of the elevation. A fence is fine. It's up to the owners there, Al and the other owners along the line there, whether a fence is in their best interest or not. I wouldn't argue the point with them. That's their decision or their preference. But it certainly doesn't do anything in terms of dealing with this significant elevation difference here.
And while you're looking at your next point, I note that all of the Liverpool Court facing properties are 75 feet
They're
wide.
75 feet. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I realize this is a preliminary and it may not be entirely precisely to scale here, so thank you. So this elevation impacts the aesthetics of this new section, as well as the stormwater runoff that Al had touched on as well here. It is a potential drainage issue. Without mitigation, the development may lead to flooding in the existing subdivision. We've historically not had flood issues, notwithstanding Al's comments about the water runoff from the berm that's in front of his house. The current state of the property, as has been noted, is largely undeveloped. It's heavily vegetated. Once it reaches elevation, it's largely flat with some drift toward the west. And certainly unimproved land drains differently than an improved property. The Section A, Item 2 on page 10 has to do with the drainage. And it says the standard is partially met. The comments recognize the stormwater concerns from our earlier courtesy review meeting. And the statement states that the village will be enlisting the services of an independent wetland consultant, ensure that the release of stormwater into the adjacent wetland will not have an adverse impact on the residential properties to the south. That's a very good thing. We're happy that we were listened to in terms of our concerns there. I think our more immediate issue is, possibly for me, myself, and certainly neighbors, is not the water, how it goes into the marshland, the wetland area, but what might come back toward us. And so there may need to be some grading considerations here in terms of the direction of the land and the swale, and however that may have to be worked with. Al also mentioned that there was some flooding issues some years ago when the development was built further west along 12, the townhouse developments there. There may be impacts on the Holly Circle, which is the subdivision immediately to the west of us. I have a question about the timing of this consultation. Hopefully this consulting would be done well in advance of any construction or development of the land. You mentioned, I think, I asked a question about page 13, item 3, what the impact of the more stringent requirements are. I think this is what you were outlining with regard to the heavier rainfall circumstances and things. Okay.
Yes, that was right. Essentially, when this property was developed, it was developed under old, lower rainfall numbers. But since that time, Lake County Stormwater Management Commission, whose ordinance we have adopted and follow, have made the rainfall standards more stringent, requiring developers to use these rainfall standards now to calculate their detention needs, their release rates, their base flood elevations, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. And my final points here, I think have been asked by the chairman here. The petitioner is developing the land. They intend to sell the lots potentially individually. And just as a resident in the area here, we have a concern over how long it might take to complete this. If a large builder were coming in here and saying, we're going to come in and we're going to develop this, and the houses will be done probably within a year, 18 months, something like that, maybe even shorter. This could string on for quite a while. And as we all know and understand, construction causes some dirt and dust and noise and whatnot and stuff. It'd be nice if there was some way that the village, as this moves forward, can address this. I understand the gentlemen here they're the developers of the lots. They will be fully motivated to try to sell these as soon as possible, to complete it and do this as soon as possible. I'm sure they're going to have a substantial amount of money invested in this, and their opportunity is to sell the lots. But once we move into that next phase, that's going to become a separate issue for the village here. And I had a question about the list price, but we've already heard about that, so thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I think just to a point of reference, the items that Al had mentioned and then the items that Mike had mentioned as well relative to the stormwater concerns. I think that was addressed when you said that this is a preliminary, right now we're just preliminary.
Yes, I am taking
as far as doing
notes.
the R45 change, and that all of those items that really are the concerns that have been raised are the ones that are going to be looked at when you get to those final engineering.
That is correct.
And all of that final engineering has to also then be in compliance with Lake County Stormwater Management, which addresses almost all the concerns that we've heard relative to that.
Correct.
Okay.
And we do not typically grant any relief from the Lake County Stormwater Ordinance.
Okay, but then the one last comment that Mike made, and you had mentioned to the commission that you're taking notes on what we're saying as far as comments and conditions for the petitioner going forward. Is one of the conditions that we could make for this change that there be some kind of a time limit relative to the development, final development? Because if we're saying as one of the conditions, Manchester Road needs to be repaved and put in a new condition when the project is finished, we don't want to see Manchester Road get refinished 5 years from now.
Yes, correct. So that is typically a tough question to answer because the construction of homes does depend pretty heavily on the market and the demand for housing. Right now, the market is very hot, and there is a great demand for housing, which is why a number of developers, such as our developer this evening, together with other developers in the community, are moving pretty fast to get houses ready and put up for sale because they know that there are buyers because the supply is relatively low in this market. But we also find that if there is a sudden drop in the market, and we can never predict what the market will do, and housing kind of peters out, the housing demand peters out to a point, and we reach the deadline that we are setting, we would be required to close out the subdivision in its current incomplete state. So I would have to weigh that option with our Public Works staff to see what the benefits to the village would be to come up with some sort of timing on the repaving of Manchester Road to village standards that in the future may also allow construction traffic to drive up and down as lots maybe down in the future get developed. Because I don't believe the goal of the village would be to reach that deadline and stop and then prohibit construction on these lots, but to maybe provide this time limit as an incentive to the developer to move to a point where they are substantially complete. Does that sound like that, or do you
Right.
want to place an absolute
No,
deadline?
and that's what I was looking at in terms of what could we do by the narrative I'm thinking
Right.
of that would incentivize the developer to, I understand market conditions some of us can
Yes.
predict, but in terms of the marketing push that would be done, if a deadline isn't reached, there could be additional things that could be done.
I think one of the questions that needs to be asked then is, because if I heard the petitioner, and I asked it several times, they're selling lots, right? So if I buy a lot, but I decide I don't want to build on it yet, right now, that's my lot. Now, unless there's a condition within the petitioner that says, when you buy the lot, you must build within a certain time frame, and that I did not hear that, and I have not heard that, and I would argue that that's not there.
No.
Then I, as the buyer, can say, you know what? I'm going to wait till I find the builder that I want with the rendition that I want, and that could be a year, 2, 3, and now you're suggesting that the village say, hey, you know what? You own that lot, but you can't build on it anymore because your time is up. And yet, I would say, why? I own the lot. They're selling the lots, not a building conditioned on the lot. That's part of that nebulous thing that I think is probably where you're heading, that it's that slippery slope.
What we could, I have looked at older ordinances where we have put time limits on certain site improvements, that all utilities be constructed on the sites at the beginning, after mass grading is completed, that all sidewalks be installed along those streets, the streets be paved up to a binder level rather than the final lift throughout the subdivision, and that any damage to Manchester Road, if the subdivision is not substantially complete, be repaired to the satisfaction of our village public works staff and village engineers, to ensure that there is no disruption to the traffic of the existing homeowners and any new homeowner that occupies 1 through 15 lots at various points in time. We would have to come up with something that offers the developer the ability to finish the subdivision, and we could grant them a time limit of maybe 2 years, 2.5 years. That, in my experience, has been typically the time limit using Avery Ridge at Midlothian Road. That was a 2-year period. 34 homes were completed, but again, with a difference. They were completed by one developer on a schedule to start and finish and be done, hand over the property to the homeowners association. This will be slightly different. In this particular case too, the developer and their successors, whoever they sell their lots to, will become part of that homeowners association and will be required to abide by all of the requirements of that homeowners association in terms of plowing, stormwater management maintenance, and also agree, the developer will have to agree to a backup special service area for the maintenance of any of these common spaces and facilities in the event the owners default on their responsibilities. So we are putting all of that into the development agreement already, but the time limit we would have to evaluate to see. But we will certainly put that in there. you can certainly make it a condition that a time limit be considered for the development to be completed in a reasonable fashion.
All right, thank you, Sarosh.
I guess I didn't think to ask this initially, but I guess I'll ask the developer, why aren't you just developing it? Why aren't you doing the building? You're willing to do some of it if somebody wants you to build the homes. Why did you decide to go with this model where you're just selling the lots and there'll be individual builders coming in rather than you just, I mean, it's only 15 houses, I guess.
Right, we see that,
Oh, to the
Can you come to
microphone,
the mic,
please.
please? Yes,
Kurt.
we are recording this and broadcasting.
that, you know, that would be our desire, would be to get to 15 clients and build 15 houses. That's ideal. But under the market conditions, I don't know what the market's gonna be next year, or the year after that. So what we're trying to do is get as much interest in selling the 15 lots as quickly as possible so that we can get our money out of the subdivision, and, cause we're putting, you know, a lot of money into site utilities and a street that that do us no good, other than allow us to get a building permit. But, you know, that's a huge upfront cost, and we wanna get our money back as quickly as possible. So we're just trying to, at this meeting, just say, we wanna go from R4 to R5, please, if you get your feeling on that. If that's approved, then we can go to the next step. But yes, we make more money as a developer to build 15 houses. I hope that's exactly what happens. But I'm not cubby-holing myself because
Got it.
I wanna make sure it gets done quicker than not. So
Got it.
as far as the concern of timing, that's up to the market. I can't, I wish I could tell that, so, okay?
All right,
And if
thank you, Kurt.
Sorry.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
If we approve the change to R5, that doesn't guarantee, I mean, it could still go through all sorts of reviews and it could end up 14 homes instead of 15. Are
If we
we
go-
approving 15?
We are approving
As part of it.
15. If you make the recommendation for approval and the village board concurs and approves it, there will be 15 lots approved, not 15 homes, but 15 lots
15 lots,
on
the
which
way
15
it's-
homes
The
can
way
be
it's
built.
presented here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next, we have Damian Wolzak.
Hello, my name is Damian Wozak. My address is 956 Manchester Road, so I am 2 doors down from Al on the west side of the road. Many of my concerns have already been brought up, but I wanted to emphasize one of them. I'm a construction manager with 25 years of experience, 13 of which was production home building. I am acutely aware of what we're in for here. You're going from R4 to R5, you're essentially increasing everything over 50%. 50% more lumber trucks, 50% more haul out. Many of these homes, if not all of them, are gonna be walkouts. You're talking 30 semis per house, maybe more, so it's 50% more. That's the way that I'm looking at it, and typically, in my experience, trucks are coming out, they're bringing clumps of dirt with them. They're gonna be hauling right down my street, right in front of my house to get rid of that, so they don't track it all the way down Manchester back to Miller Road, where maybe the police or somebody else might bust them. The other concern that I had was basically we had the water main replacement, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, where we were kind of mired in construction. I know it's not our subdivision, but we've got Miller Road that's being redone right now. We're kind of stuck in that as well. And then right on the heels of that, we've got potentially more construction. And as Al and Mike have mentioned, this could drag on for years. We could be perpetually in a state of construction. Typically, when people buy in new subdivisions, it's discounted, it's built in to the price. You're getting a deal because you're gonna deal through some, construction and dirty windows and all that kind of stuff. We didn't get that. And, again, if it was a 1 year, 18-month, suck it up, we'll get it done, no problem. But if it's 5 years or 6 years, that's a big concern for me. So that is all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Damian. Saroj, I'll ask you to answer for us, if you would, Damien's concern about the street.
Yes, excuse me. We do have a requirement that developers provide a street sweeper on a regular basis, not at the expense of the village, but on their own, to keep the streets from their subdivision line to the point, perhaps in this case, to Miller Road. We will be requiring that the streets be swept as needed, maybe twice a week. Typically, twice a week is when we find that street sweeping is needed, but during the earth moving stage, the early mass grading stage, perhaps every day. That they also have staging areas where all equipment is staged on the site and not on the adjacent streets, such as Manchester Road. That they have washout areas for trucks leaving the site on a regular basis, so that trucks are not tracking any of the dirt on, because if the trucks begin to track dirt on, as it gets more and more compacted as you leave the site, it gets harder for a street sweeper even to pick up. So we are very acutely aware of that, because we've had other subdivisions where we've had to coordinate that at a somewhat extraordinary level. But those are procedures that we already have as standard procedures in place, which we require developers to follow. We would also typically have all of this information provided to the developer during the final engineering plan stage, but more importantly, at the pre-construction meeting, where the developer and all of their trades sit in the same room, and the village goes step by step on all of these minute items, so the developer is acutely aware that they have to follow these. We also have the village engineer and their site inspectors inspect sites very regularly during the mass grading stage, so that they make the developers aware that there are certain procedures and sequences of construction that need to be followed. And so once the site improvements and the utility installation is completed, the amount of purview we have over the site reduces a slight bit, and the building inspectors then take over as each building then gets built.
Right. Thank you, sir.
That answer your question?
That was the clarification I was looking for, because I do, and Damien, I can tell you, because I've seen it happen. As a longtime resident, it has greatly improved in terms of the way that they police those kind of activities. It's not like the Old West. When it's being done here in the village, they are on top. They do keep it cleaned out.
In fact, if I may add one more point, we have gone to the extent of actually having our village engineer conduct what we call site observation at the expense of the developer. We hope it doesn't come to that with this developer, and that the developer just follows all of the requirements of the village that are stated at the pre-construction meeting. But if they start slowing down or slipping, we may have to institute what we call site observation.
Thank you, Damien. Next, we have Paul Pilzinski, if I said that correctly. If I didn't, I apologize.
My name's Paul Pilzinski. I live at 969 Manchester Road, so I'm right across the street from Al. I'm the last house on the right. Lived here for about 25 years. I agree with all the concerns, but I'm just going to hit up a few other things that I'd like to bring up. I've seen it in the document, heard it in comments, but everything's about a cohesive to our neighborhood. This is not going to be cohesive, other than it's going to be single-family houses. They're going on, Mike talked about the 75 and the corners and the cul-de-sacs. The rest are going on narrower lots than our neighborhood, pretty much. They're going to be bigger houses. So they are going to be rack them and stack them as tight as they can, get to the lot lines. So that doesn't feel like our neighborhood. We have space between our houses. You know, green space that everybody enjoys playing in. So it won't be our neighborhood. It won't be a continuation of our neighborhood. Let me just put it that way. Also, I want to point out on page 14, just because it's not in red and it's on a single page by itself, the 15-foot side lot. So now you're putting up $600,000 homes 15 foot from the street. So that's just the two at the end of the road. So rack them and stack them. More money he makes, more money. That's what drives that. So I know something's going to be built, Do I necessarily think that it should be the number they're asking for? No. Should it be less? Probably. Give it the feel of our neighborhood. A little bit more space, a little bit more room. Oh, and by the way, I will volunteer a camera on my house. And I will give you a feed, just so that we can see all the stuff that might happen, because it's gonna happen. And they will be on our lot digging up, because sewage runs through it, right through our front yard. So I will be installing a camera, just so it can't be a he said, she said.
All right.
We'll have actual documents. So, that's all.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Okay, is there anyone not on the list that wished to speak this evening that we have not heard from? Because those are the 4 names I have. All right. Put that back up here. Okay. Commissioners, more comments, questions for the petitioner before we move to deliberation?
I'd wait to deliberation.
Okay. Everybody agreeing with that? Yep. All right. Seeing all the heads move up and down, for the benefit of those not on camera, I'm saying, seeing the heads move up and down, then at this point, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and move into deliberation on application PZC 2024-14.
So moved.
Thanks, Ildy.
Second.
Thanks, Mike. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Giannini,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir,
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. Okay, so Antonio, we'll start with you.
One of the things that Sarosh said at the beginning, which he explained it to all of us, is the fact that this development, if they weren't looking to change the PUD, would be going forward as is. So therefore, this is gonna happen, one way or the other. So they've looked to see how they can leverage the land that they have. Got it. So now they want 15 homes. I don't have a problem with that. If somebody wants to have a large home on a small lot, and they're willing to give up their lot for the home, which in Lake Zurich, I see more construction done on current homes doing exactly the same thing. Because they come before us as variances all the time, where they may have had 75 width, and now they're coming in to ask for variance so that they can expand width-wise. And they are on those quarter acres because they're all over the village. All right. I don't see a negative impact when you're all of a sudden putting up homes that are in that $600,000 price. Another thing I see is that the development that went up there at, which is, I believe, Kildeer's part, where Buona Beef is, right? Those homes were in the same price range, and they went up quick, all right, quick. And as Saroch pointed out, and as we read every day, there is a lack of housing. Okay, there's not enough supply. There just isn't. I do concur with the comment that I heard about School District 95. But that's the nature of the beast. I mean, if we were to say how many high schools are in Cary or Crystal Lake, how many do they have? 3. Villages expand. There's enough people that come before us that are unincorporated, wanting to get into the area of municipal water. They don't want sewer. They don't want well. So as villages expand, that's the nature also of the beast. This is one of the reasons why we know what's happening to our wells, and that's why Michigan Water is on the agenda. We also love the fact that Lake Zurich has been touted as a great place to come to live. Why? Education, safety, shopping, all those things. And look what we're in. We're right next to Long Grove, North Barrington, Killdeer, Hawthorne Woods, Deer Park. I mean, we are a pretty nice gem. And now we're expanding further north over past Miller and going in that direction. I take a look at these homes and I see really a nice product. I would argue, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would argue that the construction on those, once those lots go up and you see some of those renditions, those lots aren't going to last long. They just aren't. And as interest rates keep coming down, and even now it hasn't stopped people anyways. So when I look at this, and I do, you know, the one comment I heard was, okay, so can we have some more privacy and build a 10-foot berm? All right, a 10-foot berm isn't going to give you much privacy on a second floor. It just isn't. It may cover the first floor, but if you're on a second floor, you're looking over anybody. If it's a matter of putting up trees or something else that's there, I would agree there. We do that all the time so that they do have more privacy. And that's why we've pushed for the evergreens, because they're all year round. That's a condition that we could actually put in to say, hey, with the fences, we need more privacy for what the residents next to it don't want to have. I get that part. And they should have that privacy, especially because they've had it. From the safety, I'm satisfied with what Zurich said, because we argue here all the time in favor of sidewalks specifically for that particular reason, to make things safe. Yet, I don't know what it's like in your neighborhood, but at night, right now, at 6 o'clock, I find more people walking in the street, walking their dogs, walking themselves, and they're wearing black.
Yeah.
Now, you talk to me about safety, and there's sidewalks in our neighborhood on both sides of the street, and yet they perpetually walk in the street. Okay? And it's lit, and you come around corners. So people themselves cause the situation of the lack of safety for themselves. I've noticed now we have signs on Old Rand Road about your speed limit. So we're doing things in the village to help people be more safe. So for me, this project is going to go forward. I don't have a problem. This is not, for me, as you know, I hate shoehorning things in. And I've made no qualms about that in the past. If something doesn't fit and it's too big, but I don't see where this is because of the way it expands out. I am concerned to make sure, and Mr. Roche, I'm saying that I'm sure I have the faith that you will, that the runoff on the water is going to be addressed. There is no doubt. I do not want to see those homes flooded. I don't want to see those streets flooded. I don't want to have those people it's already bad enough when you walk out there and you're already sloshing in your backyard just because it's been so dry. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't have anywhere to go anyways. But if this is a chance, as Sarosh pointed out, that by doing this, and the petitioner wanting this change, that we can actually leverage our power and now really mitigate the fact that the water will not run off, and ensure that, based on the stringent requirements that we will put into play, then this is actually a huge benefit. This does not negatively impact. And hey, if I bought here, as I heard, 25, 35 years ago, we can all know that those homes were probably sold and purchased for somewhere between, I'm going to guess, maybe 150 to 2, and now their value is greater, and now you've got these other $600,000 homes going up. That's only doing something for them that's positive. It's going to elevate the value of their home. So for me, I look at this as a good project. The only concern I have, of course, is you got a bunch of players. And when the one gentleman said that his home was built by Cambridge Home, his home was built at the time that my wife was working at Cambridge Home out of Libertyville. So I know the product that Cambridge Homes did. I mean, they were fabulous. They had lions on everything, but it was fabulous. Yeah? So I appreciate the fact of where they're at. And as long as those things are addressed, making sure that the road gets repaved if that's what it has to be done, and the water is mitigated, and they address the foliage that's off of the fences, those are the major things that I heard, then I like it. I'm good with it.
Thanks, Antonio. John?
No, I concur with the comments just made. Increasing from 9 to 15, going from R4 to R5, you do have an increase in density there. But to me, the trade-off is worth it. We have a greater degree of control than we would have had otherwise. And a lot of the comments or concerns raised to this point can be addressed because of the greater control we get by making the zoning change. Without it, 9 homes could still be built there. And 9 homes could still be built by 9 different home builders. It's not like that doesn't exist today. And so understood on the concerns of timing, but this to me makes sense that it's a compromise that gives a greater degree of control, and I think will offer an awful lot of improvement. I agree with, I don't know if we can make it a condition of having them come. I have no specifics that I want to see, but when they come back for final, having a more in-depth landscaping plan that has some additional screening, something that we can at least address above and beyond the fence that will be out there right now. And then I guess, and I'm not sure if we have to finalize this right now, but the other condition that has been floated is, do we put in a deadline of when it has to be repaved? I guess the concern I would have there is if you say the road has to be repaved in 3 years, but then majority of lots are built after that, and then it gets destroyed again, and are we no better off, right? And so I don't know. I just don't know how you would address that, honestly.
Doesn't that get addressed by the homeowners association then?
The homeowners association typically takes ownership of the common open areas after 75% completion, and we can perhaps use 75% of completion as a threshold of sorts to have Manchester Road paved. But I will defer to the opinion of our Public Works Director and our village engineer, because they have more of a sense of what a fully paved road with final lift on it, the final surface on it, undergoes when, say, 3 more homes within a subdivision are completed. Case in point, as an example, would be Old Rand Road along the lake. Old Rand Road currently is seeing a lot of new homes being constructed. Those homes do get the customary and traditional number of construction trucks and things like that, delivering materials, delivering equipment for mass grading and all of that. But we have not seen a great degradation of Old Rand Road. Old Rand Road was recently paved by the village. And we simply ensure that if there are cuts to the surface of the road for utility connections, sanitary and water connections, that those be paved back to village standards and not settle. And if they settle, they get redone. So we do have all of those requirements in place. But what's happening on Old Rand Road with the much larger houses that you see, Old Rand Road is going through the same thing right now. And will continue as more and more of the vacant lots or some of the lots with older, smaller homes get new homes put on them as times keep changing.
No, yeah, and I mean, I think agree with those comments. I guess if there was a recommendation made, then just deferring to village staff in some capacity on what that recommendation would be to set a standard for when that road gets repaved, whether it's a portion of the homes or there's another standard, but I'd be okay with that. I'd just be hesitant to put a time on it.
Right. We will definitely look at it and see what would be the most appropriate way to address this question and bring it back at the time of final plan within all of the conditions that will go into the development agreement.
Mr. Muir?
I do agree that changing the zoning would give us, the village, more control, but I do think there's a lot of unknowns, and I think that some of these lots could sit a long time, and that would be a great disservice to the current residents. They say 2,400, but they're not controlling it, so who knows what's gonna go up there. I think we're jamming 15 homes in there. I think there's way too many unknowns here, and there's gotta be some sort of clause on time frame and a lot of other controls in place on this one, because this can go south real fast.
Thanks, Mike. Goldie?
Well, most of my questions have been answered, and I kind of mirror what everybody's been saying. Along with Mike, I am I'd prefer it wasn't, I guess, as dense as it is. But, you know, they're 2,400 square feet, you know, 2,000, 2,400 square feet. I mean, we're not talking 4,000 square foot homes on a small lot. So, huh? You could, I guess. I mean, I don't know if I'd spend that kind of money for a lot of this size, though. You know, I don't know if the market.
We do have two controls in our zoning code bulk regulations. One is the setbacks, which you
Right.
cannot exceed. We will be requiring them to follow the setback requirements of all of the interior lots. And also see what their final corner side lot, side yard requirement is. Currently, they're proposing it at 15. The other control we have is that we have minimum landscape surface requirements of 60% of the lot. You cannot exceed that. We have never granted a variation for that. There is no process of granting a variation for that. So that is the second control we have in place for individual lots, which is kind of a individual stormwater control on that particular lot. So that is a second control that we use typically.
Yeah. You know, and like my previous comments, I mean, I'd prefer if there was one builder, one developer, one subdivision, and, you know, they were gonna handle everything, because I'm concerned down the road how this is all gonna be controlled. You know, you could conceptually have 15 different builders, and they're all gonna be sitting in a room every day agreeing to stuff. I don't see that happening. That being said, we're only approving the change to R5 at this point,
And the re-subdivision to 15
and the
lots.
re-subdivision to 15 lots.
And
Every
making a
other
recommendation.
aspect going forward still has to come back here, and then also has to go to the board
Yes.
for their approval, plus you all have to review it and you have to make, so I think in the grand scheme of things, there's enough controls in place. But the only thing we can't control is the market and timing. But from what I've seen in Lake Zurich, and you're 100% right, there's no inventory. People are dying for homes. People want to move here, and there's nothing. So unless something insane happens,
You never know. We have no control
we have
over
no
that.
control over it. We don't know. But hopefully, if all things being equal, I suspect these will go very quickly. But no other comments.
Thank you, Aldi. Joe?
I like that word control, so we keep saying that. It's a good word. So I think what everyone's trying to get at here is that there's already a plat in place right now, right, for the R4, okay? And if that was built, you'd still have homes backing up to the Manchester Court properties, right? So instead of 3 homes along the Manchester Court properties, now it's 4 with a sliver of a fifth, right? So I'm flipping back and forth to what was like the previous plat to what the new plat is, okay? So to get this done, we're thinking that now with the PUD amendment, we have more control over the development, right? So I think that what we're going to be asking for is concessions to the developer that alleviate the conditions against those properties on Manchester Court, okay? So what I'm thinking is that you need a buffer area between the Manchester Court properties and the Liverpool Court properties, okay? So I don't know if you can get that done, still keep all the lots within this subdivision, the 14 or 15 proposed. You may, it may require one lot, or lot 1 shrinking or everything to push up. But I think it's something that needs to happen, for the grading. If Manchester Court is lower than Liverpool Court, you're gonna have to do it anyway, because the stormwater will drop towards Manchester Court. So there's gonna be a swale back there anyway, okay? So I think that in your final plat, you're gonna have some kind of stormwater swale that carries water away from Manchester Court and into your detention basin. So I think it's kind of inherent that Liverpool Court moves up, okay? So this will buffer the properties on Manchester. And then the other item is, what Sean was talking about as far as landscaping. I don't see anything on a landscaping plan. I know it's preliminary, but I don't see any trees. I'd say we ask for coniferous trees that are year-round, something that, so that there is that line of sight block more than a 6-foot fence. Because of the elevation difference, you can put a coniferous tree, they grow pretty fast. They're round and they're, full and they're year-round. So I think that alleviates conditions where previously we didn't have the tools to alleviate conditions if the properties were developed in the R4. Does that make sense to everybody? I probably can't speak back, but I think that's what we're trying to do. We want to see the property develop. I think it's a benefit for the community, for single-family homes. We want, we're kind of pro-development as a community. And it could happen either way. I think what we're trying to do is just make sure, we do things because it is. Your property's protected by zoning, right? So developer's coming in, he's asking for a zoning change. It is more density. What we can do is we can help to alleviate that, okay? The other item that kept getting mentioned was obviously the timing, construction duration. That's going to be a condition, I think, of our approval. Everyone's mentioned it, to make sure that, at least the public improvements, I think we can go off of, have to be done within a certain time frame. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Joe. Scott?
I don't know what I can add to everything that's already been said. It's kind of the detriment of being over here on the end. I see what you're saying, Joe, about moving, potentially moving Liverpool Court north to create a buffer, or lack of better terms, an easement, if you will, between the properties. I don't know what that would do to the detention pond, because that would shrink that up, and I don't know if they get the volumes. Yeah.
Everything would have to be adjusted if you are moving Liverpool
Well, yeah, and it's
Court
all
up.
got to get engineered anyway.
Yes. I mean, it's all on paper right now, so now is the time for them to examine all of this at this point. Yeah.
Right.
That's why we are looking at it at a preliminary stage. We're not asking them to take the time, effort, and money to complete the final plan at this stage.
Right, and I get that. And the word control is great in this scenario. And I understand what Mike was saying too, that there's a lot of stuff that we can't control. I mean, to me, that's kind of nature of the beast as well. I mean, that's kind of life, but that's all I really have to say.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Vlad, you are at the end of the.
I pretty much agree with everything that everybody said. I think it's a good addition. More control, trading for increase in density. It's a reasonable trade-off. I don't know if there is a mechanism with the village that would give some kind of an incentive to buyers to move on with the construction sooner. Maybe doing something like a foundation preliminary permit with the lot that would be initially permitted with purchase of the lot, so they can start construction, and that has expiration, which if they don't start construction, then they have to redo the whole process. Something that kind of moves them faster. That's
Good consideration.
We do have the ability to issue foundation-only permits, but that is typically done more to control the cycle of construction during the cold season, when they want all of the earthwork done, all of the concrete work done, and then button up the site until you wait for spring and then do the superstructure. So I don't know whether that would be an incentive or not, but certainly something to consider.
Right. Thanks, Vlad. My comment would be, I was kind of surprised that Commissioner Muir didn't mention, because hearing from the residents talk about, your existing neighborhood, and how this will be impacted by this new neighborhood. And Mr. Muir would certainly have firsthand experience with that, because the photo that was shown to us of Kildare Crossing is immediately behind where his home was at. And the nature of the neighborhood changed when the new homes went in, because they went in on spacing much closer than what this petitioner is presenting to us this evening. And so all of the homes in Lake Zurich and Countryside East, that are on Windermere now back up to the new subdivision in Killdeer called Killdeer Crossing, and they have much smaller lots with much bigger homes. We didn't have any control of that, using the control word, because it was done in another village, and they did what they were going to do, but it did change the flavor of the neighborhood. And the other impact to our neighborhood has been, because that new subdivision of 90 homes, or whatever it was, they're not lit. They have no lighted walkways. So the people who live there come into Countryside East, and they do their walking in our neighborhood because we have streetlights. And all of a sudden, my wife and I were commenting about, where are all these new people coming from with these new dogs? And then we watch them proceed down Old Mill Grove and head back home to Killdeer Crossing. But the world has changed. Countryside East was built in 1976 and going forward, and the homes that we have were built on those size lots. The developers now are building on smaller lots, and it's just because people, their taste, aren't wanting the bigger lots to maintain, and so we're not controlling what people want. The market does, and this is the direction the market is going. So, I don't see it being a negative going from the current 9 to 15. I actually see it as a bit of a positive because of using Joe's word again, the control, that it does provide the village control over that to protect the residents more than what they would have been under the existing R4 that we're being asked to consider. So from my point of view, I see this development as positive, but I do, having heard from the commissioners, I do think there's some conditions that we would like to see be considered by the board with the recommendation. So is there anything else, or you guys want to consider a motion? All right, and let's see if we think we have this right. So on application PZC 2024-14, I would entertain a motion to receive into the public record the staff review of compliance of this application with the zoning standards as presented by staff, and to receive the testimony presented by the applicants, by members of the public, by the PCC members, and by village staff at tonight's public hearing, and make these standards and testimony a part of the official record for the application and findings of the PCC, and a consideration of the inclusion of a condition of a description of time limit for the completion of all 15 units, as well as the additional plant screenings along the southern portion of the development. And to recommend that the village board approve the application of an amendment to the planned unit development, PUD, for Meadowwood East to rezone the property within the R5 single-family residential district and to subdivide the property from 9 to 15 single-family lots.
So moved.
Thanks, Hildy.
Second.
Thanks, Sean. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo?
Aye.
Commissioner Giannini?
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison?
Aye.
Commissioner Muir?
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Stratman?
Aye. Okay, so the motion's been made, seconded, and it has received the recommendation by this commission to go to the village board at an upcoming meeting. Staff will confirm the date with the applicant.
Yeah, we had to work out some of these details that we've heard tonight with the applicant before we go to the village board. So it will be maybe a month or so, and at the speed that the applicant is able to address these concerns for us.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kirk, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, under our agenda, item 5 is other business. There is no other business.
Good.
Item 6, we have staff report.
Do you have anything?
We received one application for a detached garage variance
Okay,
for a
all
home along Park.
right, so that
That'll
will
come
be
to you.
heard for November?
For November.
Okay,
And then the other item I wanted to report on is our comprehensive plan update. We've been working closely with the consultants and are now expecting a draft report to start reviewing by the end of this week, which we will review over the next month, and then hold a community meeting to get the input on that draft comprehensive plan itself. Following that, we will then come back to the Plan Commission in its position as the steering committee for the comprehensive plan to conduct the required public hearing, get any comments, and then make a recommendation to the village board for final approval and adoption of our comprehensive plan.
Right.
So we're getting really close to the end.
All right, very good. Thank you, Sarosh.
What is the timeframe on that?
The timeframe of bringing it to the commission, we think likely at the December meeting with a village board tentatively for either January or February, depending on how quickly any comments need to be incorporated into the document.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we had item 7, public comment. We already have public comment this evening. So we move to item 8, which is adjournment, but I don't think anyone wants to do that. So we'll just sit here for a while?
We'll just keep talking?
No.
Yeah, no.
No, okay, no. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo? Aye. Commissioner Giannini?
Aye.
Commissioner Glowaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Kovacevic?
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison?
Aye.
Commissioner Muir?
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Stratman?
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Joe,